Don't break it now.
That would be pretty bad.
Yeah.
Okay, it is 2:30 Eastern time in the United States. We still have a steady stream of women coming in and out of the conference. I want to thank you all. Some of you have been here as long as I have been. So, and Kelly, so thank you so much for spending your time with us. And if obviously, if you're popping in and out, there will be replays available after. Everybody who registered for the conference will get an email with instructions on how to make all of that happen. This session is a little out of the leadership mentorship theme that we have of Girls Who Print conference today. But the reason why I wanted it included is because not enough people are listening to this. And if anyone's going to listen, at least let's give the Girls Who Print the first chance to get in, get this worked out, and not get caught up in the potential issues coming about. And what do I mean by all of that? So this session is brought to you by the Print Report, which I'll get to in a moment. And it is titled The Dangers of Data-Driven Marketing. And one of the reasons why it's so topical is because pretty much all we talk about now is everybody needs to be a data-driven marketer. And we've drilled it into the industry, we've drilled it into our customers. And now, saying that we're pumping the brakes, it's not a brake pump. It's more like you're either going to go off the cliff or you aren't going to go off the cliff. So there are new privacy laws being passed in the United States that will require opt-ins from consumers to receive direct marketing from print shops. I'm letting that set in for a second. You could potentially be part of a data breach litigation unless you take the steps to understand what laws are here, what laws are coming, and how to prepare your customers and protect your business. To help everybody get started, please welcome my Print Report co-host, Pat McGrew. Pat McGrew helps companies perform better. As managing director for McGrew Group, she promotes best practices for your business, leveraging her work as an executive, marketer, analyst, industry evangelist, and consultant that enables business growth. As an experienced professional, a speaker, and author of 8 business books, Pat is also the editor of A Guide to the Electronic Document Body of Knowledge, a regular industry content contributor, and host of Print Sample TV. So Pat is going to co-host this discussion with me, and we have a special guest with us, Dr. Linda Fried. Dr. Linda Fried, if you could just wave to everybody. Dr. Linda Fried teaches business law at the University of Colorado. Qualified in both the United States and Australia, she helps students understand the practical realities of the law for business owners. And most recently, Dr. Fried has been tracking changes in the US privacy law landscape. Now, Dr. Fried is not here giving legal advice. We are having a conversation. She happens to be a professor of law, business law. So that disclaimer is now on this video, so everybody heard me. So Pat, you brought this matter to my attention, and when you did, I pretty much fell off my chair and couldn't even believe what you were saying to me. And we did 2 podcasts about this, sounding the alarm about the potential liability that a print shop could face by sending direct mail to consumers. So can you start off by laying the groundwork of what is, I'm sorry, can you start by laying the groundwork of what is going on, what is driving that, and then please bring Dr. Fried into the conversation.
Right. So I know I have to thank Linda because she's teaching and she's trying to do a whole bunch of other things, and we begged her to come spend a half hour with us today. So Linda, thanks so much for doing that. So look, we started if you're in this industry and you do direct mail marketing or even if you do transaction work, you do anything that works with data, something in the back of your head tells you that there's something going on right now in the marketplace, because we've got the California Consumer Privacy Act that's now been changed to CPRA. We've got, you see things pop up in the newsletters about, data breaches, and then you see things pop up in the trade press about people being sued because of not because somebody didn't like what they sent them in the mail. I mean, or they didn't like an email that they got. There's all sorts of really weird lawsuits that started popping up. And as I started getting more interested in them, I started talking to Linda a lot about it. Linda's a friend and hangs out with us quite a bit here at the Malone McGrew Ranch. And we started talking about, what all was really going on. And then Linda started noticing that, like, I mean, every state's doing something, right? So unlike the EU, unlike Europe, where you have the European General Data Protection Act, that is kind of something that everybody's got to play by if you want to do business with data in Europe. The US is, well, it's the Wild West. And I'm not just saying that because Linda and I are in the Rocky Mountains. I'm saying that because every state, that we have no national data policy. So every state gets to do whatever they want. So we've gotten into the point where there's like 54 different laws that are varying by state and region. There are, and they're all different. Some of them make you opt in, some of them force you to opt out. Some of them can't decide what they want. We have laws that have been enacted in California and Colorado and Nevada and Virginia. We've got more laws coming every day. Linda, sent me this long note where she gave me all the details, and I want to bring her in to have the conversation. The bottom line here is the reason we wanted you all to hear this as Girls Who Print is because you guys are influencers. You wouldn't be here otherwise. And we'd like you to be the smart people in your organization who are actually paying attention to what your organization is doing with data. And remember that just because you're sitting in, North Carolina, and maybe you think you only print for people in North Carolina, if anything you print wanders out of the state, you may be subject to laws that you might not have even been paying attention to. So Linda, thanks so much for coming. Did I get any of that wrong?
No, actually, you were pretty correct. So very good. And I want to thank both you and Deborah for letting me come on. It was interesting that you chose North Carolina because North Carolina has a bill, an active bill, that's up for a final reading. And it's probably going to look like, to me, it looks like it's going to pass. It's called the Consumer Privacy Act. And it's interesting because at this point, so many states have theirs, different bills that went through. Even last term, 18 bills failed, but 14 of those 18 have already been reproposed. And most of the reason these actually failed was because either it didn't include enough or it included one item. And that single item people are questioning is the right for consumers to file a civil action. And the reason the legislatures are a little worried about that is they're afraid that may then clog up the judicial systems with heaps of people
What's happening
filing.
in California already? Isn't that
Yes.
because the way the California law got styled was that I could have received mail that passed through a mail house in California, and I'm sitting in Ohio. And if I'm unhappy with the level of detail of the data in that direct marketing piece, I get to go sue in California.
Yep.
Ladies, I just want to stop for 1 second and just rewind back and lay the foundation a little more. So what this is all based upon is one day I'm out there, I'm on a website and somebody captures my data and then it gets sold to somebody else and sold to somebody else. And then all of a sudden I've got direct mail. I'm receiving things from people who shouldn't have my address, who shouldn't know my name, who shouldn't know my shopping preferences, anything like that. And that is why this is now touching this part of it. It's not about the direct mail. It's about how that name and how that address got to that print shop, and then who addressed it, who put it in the mail, and who sent it. So I just wanted to clarify that portion of it, because
It is
what-
about the data. You're
what
right.
we're really talking about here is the mailing lists that the printers receive from their customers, and or the ones that they use themselves to generate mail. Is that
Or the ones
correct?
they may have bought. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
It's
because
both-
Linda, that's
it's
a
both
risk, right?
collection. Yeah, it's both the collection and the use of those lists that leave you liable in almost every state. And even worse now, there are laws, there are bills going through the federal government. In fact, there's over a dozen since they've come back from recess. So in under 2 months, and it's all because of the privacy lessons that we learned from COVID, accentuated the need to recognize privacy as a fundamental right, just like our Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments gives us. And this has resulted in such a huge push toward consistent federal protection, not just this piecemeal, as you pointed out, of all these different states throwing all these different things out there. And
Not just the states that are doing different things, right, Linda? It's the different industries are doing different. Like if you deal in healthcare marketing, you got to be concerned about HIPAA. But if you're doing like financial services marketing, you have always had to be concerned about the things like Gramm-Leach-Bliley and all of those data protection issues. But now laying on top of that, every state is feeling a need to do the same, to do something unique to the state.
Definitely. And even if we pass federal legislation, which I think we will see with these bills and with this huge drive that's coming up. I mean, there have been 12 bills introduced in the House and 18 in the Senate since they came back from recess. Now, 6 are identical. They're just going through both houses, both the House and the Senate at once. But that means there's 24 different bills, and they have sponsors from over 14 states, and it's bipartisan. It's the Dems and the Republicans, and some of them on the same bills. So I really see a huge potential for those to actually pass. And unfortunately, these include some that look identical to CCPA, and another that's going to cover the requirements for obtaining opt-out approvals for sensitive information, and also requiring opt-ins for non-sensitive. So that means anything you collect, you're going to probably have to get permission. Okay, so it's not their name, it's not their address, it's the fact that they came to my page. Do we need opt-in for that? And I've read that bill 4 times, and I'm like, oh,
and there are a whole group of people who today specialize in helping you identify the people who came to your webpage
And
by
then
their
mark
IP
it to
address.
them.
Yeah.
It's literally
Yeah.
what the printing industry does now, which is why I have been freaking out about this for
Yes.
3
This is
months.
scary.
And I don't understand why everybody else isn't doing this, isn't going, what in God's name are we supposed to do? Now, can we shift at all to compliance? Is there a path to compliance here, Dr. Freed?
Is there a path to compliance? Well, let me tell you, the compliance is going to have to include everything that's being covered: the right to access, the individual, and delete information if it's incorrect or they feel it's incorrect, because you really can't argue with them about it. Portability, to opt out, and even in that opt-in requirement, which is what is really troublesome, just to collect anything. Posting the required notices that we are collecting this information. Almost every one of the bills in the states and all the bills with the feds include a right to rectification so that you can fix everything. They even cover things like automated decision making and all these other restrictions. And most of the state bills have both criminal and civil liabilities, although, like I said, that's been a sticking point. So some of these are now coming in without the civil liability, but the criminal liability is really high. Even California is, who of course has had their law for a while, is now actively going out and pursuing companies about this. And they have set out the word that nobody's safe. We don't care if you are, everyone's fair game. We don't care if you're a little toy store, if you're an online dating platform, if you're a mailing house or mass media or pet adoption platform. I mean, come on.
Wow.
They are
And
coming
everybody
after
is
you.
the same in the eyes of the law. I guess they're taking that
Yeah.
to the nth degree, right?
Pat, I actually want to ask you a question just to, I just want to, again, just give people real world comprehension of what's going on here.
Yeah.
I walk into a car dealership and for whatever reason, they have my information. I gave them my driver's license in order to test drive a car, right?
Right.
Now, the next thing I know, I get a piece of direct mail from them.
You're likely to, yes.
Potentially, there's a potential that I could turn around and say, this is a breach of my privacy. I didn't give anybody permission to copy my address, send me anything. And now I go after the car company or the dealership that sent it. But in that, their printer is also part of the liability. Is that correct?
And it's going, Linda, tell me if I'm wrong. It's going to depend on the state, right? Because we have state-based laws.
Right now, we only have
The concept
Yes.
of what I said.
Conceptually, yes.
Yes.
Okay, that I want people to understand the concept and not necessarily the details of where it applies.
Eventually, you will be liable.
Okay, so not just, so if I'm getting, why is Mercedes sending me mail? I don't want anything from Mercedes. I go after Mercedes and then the printer can get wrapped up in it unless the printers start doing something now to protect themselves, receiving that data from their customers. Is that a fair statement?
Exactly. Perfect. You have to start being proactive now. In fact, if you listen to I believe it was Senator Wicker out of Massachusetts, he's actually called on the Biden administration to set up a special czar for this because he feels the privacy rules have got to be covered. If you listen to what he says, he's calling for a behavioral change in covered organizations and institutions. In other words, you have to rethink everything you've been doing in terms of protecting everyone's privacy from now on. And these are going to come through, and some of these federal bills will be passed. It depends on how much fluff is added to it and how many bridges to nowhere and things like that get added. That may bog it down where people may not actually pass for it, but you're going to see something. And in fact, with both of the budgets that are right now in front of Congress, and of course they will eventually pass one of them, there's over $10 billion. I'm sorry, over $1 billion over 10 years just to create a new privacy and data security division. And they are ready to jump on that as soon as it's signed. And of course, President Biden has already said he's going to sign this immediately. So it's going to be signed.
So Linda, let me ask you a question about that. So if I'm a printer, I might be a little sloppy about the contractual arrangements I have with my clients. Not sloppy in the sense of guaranteeing print quality and all the things everybody's really worried about, but I might not have paid as much attention to the fact that I'm accepting data and I don't know where it came from. And similarly, I might be buying lists and supplying them as part of, my marketing services to customers, and not know entirely where those lists came from either. So it sounds to me like what you're saying is that if I'm in this industry, this would be a really good time to sit down with my legal team and take a very hard look, not only at the contracts I have with customers, my web to print agreement that sits
Ooh,
on my web to print site,
amazing
right,
point,
for
Pat.
ad
Yeah.
hoc work, but also for me to be having really hard conversations with anybody I might be buying lists from
Yes.
because I mean, at the end of the day, I want to be held harmless for anything that might go wrong. And maybe that's an impossibility depending on what state I'm in, but I at least should know what my obligations and my liabilities are.
Definitely. I really think everyone has to understand the nuances required for the CCPA forms and mechanisms. I believe California will probably be the most strictest and most enforced. I think although there are stricter ones out there on certain items. So again, you need to talk to somebody within your state to see how your state legislation and proposed legislations are going to line up. These will be passed. Let me just also say that even worse, last week, 9 senators led by Senator Blumenthal out of Connecticut actually wrote a letter to the FTC chair calling on the commission to commence a rulemaking process around data privacy in order to strengthen online privacy protections, including a whole heap of new obligations for how business needs to handle consumer data. The problem with this is this would get the stricter requirements out and in force as soon as they did the rulemaking.
Wow.
And that we're talking about could take, you probably have to put it in the Federal Register and get some responses, but it could be up and running within 30 days.
Oh my God. And then everyone has to be compliant. That's it. The next thing you do that's not compliant, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You're at the very least, you're open to litigation.
Right.
And
yeah.
And of course, it's not dependent to any activity by Congress. I mean,
Right.
we're talking about
that's just the FTC
just
basically
pushing it out.
Right.
Yeah.
So Jennifer Platt, she's basically, asking the question. So if it is this simple. As a printer, if a customer gives us a mailing list, how do we know that they compiled the data correctly? And this is the thing, you don't. So your contract with that customer has to go through all your legal channels, all your legal things, that at the end of the day, you're literally saying, we are accepting this, but we accept zero liability. If they didn't do what they were supposed to do, we have a contract with them that says they have to do what they have to do. And if I get caught up in a lawsuit, I'm going to turn around and point to the other people and say, here's my piece of paper, here's my get out of jail, out of this lawsuit free card, right? I mean, it might cost you money, but you get separated out of the lawsuit or anything like that. But usually you can, if you win those things, you can recoup your legal costs, but you're still going to have to deal with it.
Right.
Unless you deal with it now, right, Dr. Freed, pretty much?
Yeah, you've got to deal with it now. You've got to get language in your contracts that are going to cover you when something like this happens. You still can be hauled in and you still can be found liable. I haven't seen the rulemaking specificities yet because they're just writing it, and they are writing it, trust me. But something's going to come down this year, and it's going to come down from the federal government. And I think we'll see the rulemaking probably in 60 to 90 days, so before the end of the year. And we may or may not see federal legislation, but we certainly will see it soon. If it's not before December, it's got such wide, broad support from both houses and bipartisan support. And that's what's frightening, that something's going to come down from them, and it will come down soon.
So someone asked if there was something that we could point to that, a PDF of everything you need to know. And Actually, with Linda, we've actually written a couple of things over in What They Think land, but the
We also
thing
have two
I
podcasts and they
we
have some
have
links in
two
them. Yeah.
fabulous podcasts that we've done that cover a lot of the stuff. The other thing, and Linda, it's the one that I sent to you yesterday. The folks at the New York Times, their Wirecutter group, which is kind of the weird group at the New York Times, they actually did an article yesterday called "The State of Consumer Data Privacy Laws in the U.S. and Why It Matters." It was originally published back in September, but it is actually a really lovely piece. So if you look for the New York Times and you look under the State of Consumer Data Privacy Laws, you can get that. Now, if you're one of those people who can't get behind the firewall at the New York Times because you don't pay for a subscription, just because you're a girl who prints and you are on this fabulous day of education, ping me over on LinkedIn and I will be delighted to drop it into your DM over on LinkedIn and share it, because one of the things that they did, which I really appreciated in the article, was they put the reminders in. Look, no matter who you are, what industry you're in, there's already something guiding what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. These laws are different. These laws
Right.
actually change the game for you. All these things you thought were protecting you go away, whether it's at the state level or whether we get very quick federal level things. Hey, Linda, when we get to this, thank you, Barbara. Fabulous.
No,
I will
Lois.
send that to you, and Lois
Yeah.
put the link in. Thank you. But at the end of the day, if we get federal legislation and my state has passed legislation like ours, Colorado passed just a few weeks back, who wins?
Well, actually, if they can be read together, they both win. And I think the way most of these have been written, they're both going to win. I think there'll be very little that will change the state law, because I don't think you're going to be able to claim that the state law adversely affects interstate commerce, which would have been the only way you could have gotten around it. I just don't see that flying.
So we have to watch for every level, right? As an industry,
Yeah.
we've got to be watching. It doesn't matter where we live.
I mean, it boils down to, like, something that is a hard lesson to learn as a human being, which is that the only thing you can control is yourself, right? It's the only thing you can control is yourself. So in this whole scenario, there's no way you're going to be able to understand all the different laws in all the different states. There is a potential of some things in the federal government laws not matching or superseding things in the state laws. And you can invest in a legal team, or you can basically invest in protecting yourself, not touching a mailing list from anybody. You cannot trust people anymore unless there is some sort of binding legal agreement that list has been vetted by that company who knows the laws, who knows what's legal, who knows what's not, who has gone through the due diligence of getting every single person on that list to opt in to receive, wait for it, printed communications. This is not about emails anymore. This is not, you can't mark a piece of direct mail as spam, which is, you've got to go up the food chain here. So I just really, really want to emphasize that this is the moment. I don't know why other people aren't freaking out about it. I would be losing my mind if my business was a direct mail business.
We have an idea why they're not freaking out. It might have something to do with what Sally is asking. So Sally, that is a brilliant question. She's saying, hey, we're SOC 2 certified. We follow strict data chain of custody protocols, and we require a USPS permission acknowledgement form. So can we still be at fault?
And the answer is yes. Can you be at fault? Probably not in the long run, but can you be sued? Yeah, that's the problem. And what you need to do is prepare yourself now, cover yourself now, so that you're not going to be part of the litigation when the litigation comes. It will come. It's a way for the government to make money, particularly with the criminal liability involved. And, they want money. You really have to think about it. I mean, let me just say that Cisco released a poll this week that said 86% of consumers care about data privacy and want more control. 86%. And 79% of consumers are willing to invest time and money to better protect their privacy. The call is out there. It's going to be answered with legislation. Cover yourself now so that when, and unfortunately I'm saying when, as opposed to if you get hit, you're going to come out on top.
Yeah. Hey, Deb, I know we're about out of time, and it sounds like we could do this for a while.
No, I'm just doing a presentation. It's going to be really quick after. I mean, does anybody out there have questions?
Questions? We'll see what we can do.
Yeah, I know that you and I, we had discussed it before that, if you look at something like Every Door Direct Mail, this does not affect that. And why? Because it's not going to somebody's name. It's going to where whoever it concerns living at this address.
Profile-based.
Now, does that mean that all mail that is not, if it comes to my house and it's dear occupant, is it still under the same thing, or it has to know, the company has to know I personally live here? Because maybe, I've been trying to think of all these ways around it, like mailing it from other countries. And Dr. Fried?
My guess is that would be excluded. Even if it's profile based, and that's a profile base is the one that's troubling me. So if you just sent something out to occupant, you're not directing it to anyone, you're not collecting data. This is just
even if you got the address.
If you have the address from the, say from the US Post Office listings of all the addresses, or you walked up.
Okay, but hold on, I'm being a little more sneaky than that.
Okay.
What if I have a mailing list for my customer? And it's going to a bunch of small businesses, right? And I just take off the name of the owner and it just goes to the business name.
No, then you're starting to really profile, and it'll be businesses of the same. You mean every business in the area?
If you got caught, Deb, this is one of those cases where what are the odds that you'll get caught? It depends on whether you're mailing into a close-knit community or not.
Yeah, I would be troubled by that.
I'd be worried.
I if you're doing a mass mailing, and I get them all the time to all the addresses, because of politicians, we've got another election coming up. All the politicians are sending mass mailings out to occupants. That you're safe on. If you're sending out the Safeway or Albertsons or Kroger coupons, they go to all the households. But I'd be troubled by anything that's going to any small group, particularly a profile group like this type of business. If you said all the small businesses in an area, a large area, I wouldn't be concerned. But if you were targeting, I think you'll be in trouble.
The Europeans
and so think about all the people who sell those profiling services. So, if you're using one of the services that are offered by some big vendors to say, oh, well, we'll tell you everybody who lives in this apartment building who makes above $100,000. Okay. Did those people opt in to be profiled that way? Did they
That's
not?
profiling.
It's profiling.
I mean, I go to an event and I get, or worse, I register for something online now, and I am just being bombarded with things. Is that the same thing? If I allow someone to scan my badge, am I opting into getting marketing from every single person?
Depends on the agreement that was in place when you got the badge, because an awful lot of event signups now, if you read the fine print, which almost no one does, you are agreeing to receive marketing material from every sponsor and exhibitor at an event.
Yeah. But usually you can opt out of it because it's electronic. I mean, just saying,
if they're smart. But even when you go to live shows.
No, I agree. Does anybody have any questions? If not, we'll wrap it up. Okay, I think I find it amusing that the Europeans are laughing at us. Yes, we are behind you.
Yes, Stephanie, you are
But
right.
Stephanie, yes, it is very concerning and alarming. Thank you. That is the proper response that I have been having for a very long time, and no one else is properly alarmed. So thank you, Denise. That is, everybody
Yep.
on this webinar shouldn't even be here anymore. They should be calling a lawyer or something going, I just heard the craziest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. People are suing printers over receiving an offer to go to the yogurt shop and get 10% off my yogurt. When again is this all changing? It already has started. Dr. Fried, any more context around that?
No, you just have to sort of watch day by day. Of course, I'm sure I'll be back with Pat doing another one of our talks, and hopefully with Deborah as well soon, because Congress is in session, and
Yeah.
I am watching what not just Congress, but of course the states are doing. And literally most of this information I'm giving you has come about in the last month, if not even the last week. So this is something they're actively pursuing at this point because everybody can agree on it, unlike things like the budget. So this is something they can get little wins on.
Denise, no, I don't think anybody's lobbying against it because honestly, I think the only 3 people speaking about it are on this webinar right now. And I don't know, I didn't know what else to do. I've tried podcasts. We've gone on, Pat went on What They Think. I made it specifically made it a session at this conference so that I would have we even made another video about it. I mean, I don't know what else to do. I've sent the information to the industry organizations. I've said to them, what are you doing about this? And, you know, I'm not making excuses, but there is only so much they can do about things. There's a lot of things they have to do something about right now, getting the printing industry back to work. And, what are we going to do about vaccinations and gathering and all that thing, and staying afloat is, top of mind too. But this is one of those creeper issues, right? Where all of a sudden, like, yeah, I heard something about that. And then all of a sudden, a process server is at your door, and you're like, what's going on here? And it's, it's something you actually can prepare for right now. There's another comment about, so if you're not personalizing, you can't target either for a demographic base like income. It's,
California's exploring this right now. They're talking about going after things that are based on income and location, specific small areas. Like, let's pick the wealthy area,
Orange
the wealthy
County.
element.
There's like
But
high end
even-
of Orange County.
Yeah, but even more specific than that, certain parts of, say, Palm Springs or San Diego or whatever, like in Riverside.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, wow. I'm waiting to see what they do. Because they are talking about it, because they said this isn't right. You shouldn't be able to do that unless people opted in. And this is where the question is what do they opt into, or do they even have that right? And of course, most people until recently have had no right to opt into things.
So Denise,
and yes, they're even going after Denise nonprofits.
Yeah, Denise, but you're asking all the right questions. Everything can continue as it's continuing, as long as that nonprofit has permission from that person who they are going to communicate with in any manner. And it's got to be one of those, basically, if you come within 3 feet of me, or my business. And I mean, it's about the minute I step on a website, I'm getting all these cookie notifications now, right? But that'll upgrade itself to also be, if we track you, we might send you a piece of direct mail, and then there'll have to be an opt-ins as many, for what you are able to the way you want people to communicate. And Pat, it reminds me a long time ago at the Explore conferences when there were companies, I don't know why, there were companies there that gave you the opportunity, like how you wanted to communicate with them
Yeah.
a long time ago. And it was like an entire service. Like it was like something you could put on it was a software situation.
Yeah.
Maybe that needs to make a comeback or something like that.
I think there's two things. So specifically to answer a nonprofit question, one client that I work with who is a huge printer for nonprofits. One of the things they actually listened to a Pat and Linda and Deb podcast, and they kind of reached out and they said, so, yeah, okay, we get the problem. So what they did is they went to all of their nonprofit clients and they said, we would like to send to all of the people you are that you have been communicating with a new opt-in agreement. We would just like to send that to them so that we're back on record with fresh, because some of the mailing lists they've been using, for, Catholic Charities or whoever, they've had for, building over 20 years. They're, they think those people are still at those addresses. They're not even sure. And so they wanted to do that. And that actually was successful for them because the vast majority of people did opt back in. And many of the people who didn't opt back in were either dead or no longer living at those addresses. So they kind of cleaned up their mailing list too. But if you are in that world where you have a relationship with the person you're mailing to, there's no reason not to go mail them something that allows them to opt back in and gather that. And, how would you rather have, a postcard or a letter, or, what would you like? And it's a chance to reestablish the relationship. The people who have it harder are the people who are prospecting, right? Prospecting is the hardest thing.
So we focused a lot on taking in customer lists, but this also includes your own list.
Yeah, your house list.
Printers and vendors out there might have lists of customers that they've scanned trade show badges from 5 years ago. Guess what? You no longer have permission to contact them through print. I'm not going to, get involved with the digital permissions, but right now you do not have permission to send them a postcard about your new machine. So can we address that?
And most of the hardware vendors, and I will tell you that most of the hardware, the big hardware vendors, got smart about this over the last 5 years and began putting expiry dates on their trade show captures. So, for some of them, they've already sort of laid the groundwork, but an awful lot of them haven't.
I want to say, sort of think about this like a do not call list. You can register for the national do not call list. And if any company has not had a relationship with you before, they're not supposed to call you. And if they do, if you report it, there's some pretty stiff penalties.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to become a do not mail list or do not email list, whatever you're doing. That's what it's going to become. So it would be better to take the steps now at this point before all the federal legislation passes and everything else to clean up your contracts, mail out, letters the next time saying, do you want to opt in for more? Maybe you want to receive it this way or that way, however it is, and see what responses you get. It should give you far more protection.
Yeah, and I want to mention something that Pat said before in another session about what makes her a valuable independent consultant is that she understands everything that's going on in the industry. And when she understands something better than somebody else, she has an advantage. Printers, listen to me very carefully. If you become an expert in this right now, if you can get yourself under control and then have a process to explain to your customers in a few simple steps with their legal team involved, of course, but to implement a system and let them know that they need to go back to where they're getting their customer permissions from. And you will have a niche value proposition. We can help you get this under order, and then we can mail correctly to everybody out there. So I would definitely say that, if we after you get your house in order, which is the most important thing, which is why we're talking about it right now and why we are charging all the girls who print to make something happen. Do not get caught up in this. The next step is turning it into a service and helping your customers do the same thing. And by the way, attracting customers and literally using it as a service. So Pat, any final words as we wrap up here?
Just to respond, Karen Kimmerer, thank you so much for putting the note in there. I know you've been writing on it too. So and Christine, thanks so much for your notes, and the chat is valuable, guys. So take a look at it. But what I'm going to say to you is listen to something that Linda said in the beginning, and I think we've reiterated. All of this stuff is changing daily, right? So whatever you think you understand about CCPA today, remember that there is CPRA, and CPRA plays by slightly different rules. It's the updated version in California and has some slightly different parameters to it. Remember that, what we think is okay in Colorado, what our state legislator passed versus what got passed in Virginia, what got passed in Nevada, what a couple days after Colorado, what's going on in Washington State and Oregon State, what's going on in North Carolina, as Linda mentioned, plus what's going on at the national level, whether it's via the FTC or whether it's through legislation. This is stuff that is changing every single day, and it's a lot to keep track of. But put some Google bots out there to keep an eye on stuff that gets published. Remember that your trade association might not be the best place to be looking for legal information, because a lot of them don't have someone to cover it. So
by the way, what a
listen.
great service to add. We were speaking
Oh, it would be.
this morning.
Yeah, but you've got to have people, and it's
I'm
it's
just
all
I'm just
resources.
saying that, like, if we're looking at how we all need to move forward as an industry, and we were talking before about like what are the skills that associations are going, having a legal.
This is a great association skill.
Yeah. Well, maybe not even necessarily a skill, but somebody who's available to the members, and especially to guide them through what is already here, people. This is not some fantasy. It's already here. It just may not be in your state yet. But as Pat said before, fantastic. If I'm only mailing in Colorado, great. And they don't have the law. But the minute my postcard hits Nevada, I could have a problem with that. So Dr. Freed, any last words? And first of all, thank you so much for your time. As Pat said, we really do appreciate, you're juggling your classes and everything else to come and speak with us today. Any final words on this?
All I can do is reiterate what you both have said. It's changing daily. I mean, like I said, some of the stuff just came about this week. Most of the things I talked about came about since Congress came back in session, since the August recess. So it's changing quickly. There's a huge drive for it right now. I think we will see changes made. Hopefully, well, perhaps sooner rather than later, depending on what they want to pass. Every state passes something different. In some states, I can tell you, nonprofits are covered by this. So you really have to look at, it's not just the California for-profit. Some of the states are actually more restrictive in some of the areas. So be careful. Don't assume that CCPA and CPRA are the standard. They aren't necessarily the standard for that state. So be careful when you hear them talking about this. I monitor this on a weekly basis, and I can't tell you how many articles I wind up going through every month that's relative to what's going on. Congress and the houses and senates of your states are back in session. I would look for movement, see what they do. And thank you so much, Deborah and Pat, for having me in. I love coming on and speaking with you guys.
Well, we are definitely going to have you back again. I mean, I'm going to say unfortunately, no offense to you, but because I can't believe, I mean, even going after new business now, like, don't go after new business until you have this under control.
Yep.
You might go after new business that has, oh, by the way, we didn't tell you about this 50,000 piece mailing we do every 2 months, well, I can't do that for you until we have another conversation. So you don't even want to go after new business, new customers until you have something for them to sign. Even if it hasn't hit you yet, get some blanket type of, not me, look over there,
Talk to your legal counsel, right?
Yes.
I mean, whether it is through your trade association, as Christine pointed out, there are a lot of people who have access to legal counsel through their trade associations. If you don't have a company lawyer or a business lawyer that you normally work with, get legal counsel before you don't write it yourself.
No,
No.
don't.
Just don't.
No. Especially since they're, as Dr. Freed pointed out, I don't want to call it a money-making scheme, but it is a profit center. And as long as it's a profit center, why would you turn off the faucet? So, the first test cases will be interesting. And I say cases because they could be in every state, could have its own test case. It's not like the European Union where there's kind of one law to
European
them
court.
all.
Right.
It's a free-for-all, as we know from our mask and vaccination situation here in the United States. So okay, people are asking where you're following up with the updates. Maybe you guys can just jump in the chat, and then I'm just going to do a really quick 5-minute presentation and then wrap it up with Kelly.
Yeah, so Deb, the last thing, anybody who's trying to follow all of this stuff, give us a little bit and I'll work with, I actually have written a couple articles that were based on some information Linda gave me, and maybe I'll do a blog for Print Media Center for the next newsletter, and we can put some guidance in there.
That would be excellent. Yes. And ladies, gentlemen, whoever's on this call, pay attention to Print Media Center, because I'm telling you, I am literally running around like my hair is on fire and the sky is falling, because I truly believe it is, only because of the brain, I don't want to call it brainwashing, but the way that we have been thinking about print and marketing over the last 5 years, and finally it actually is manifesting, and now the rug is being pulled out from underneath that, and it might require a complete retooling on what products and services you offer, the customers that you want to prospect with. Somebody that you might have looked really good with 100,000 member, mailing might be looking like, stranger danger right now, no, I don't want anything to do with that until I have my house in order. So please get your houses in order. Pat McGrew, thank you so much. Dr. Linda Freed, thank you so much. I would love to put Dr. Linda Freed's link, but she's secret. Nobody gets to talk to her but Pat McGrew. So connect with me and Pat if you have any questions, and thank you guys so much.